and it went down. It went through my arm, and then I was sitting on the pipe, and it went right through my leg into the pipe. So it had this pathway, the electricity, going through my arm and then out behind my butt right there. And I've already been on the job site. I know what materials I need. I know where everything needs to go. And that job is already done in my head before I get there. It's done. I already have it planned out in what I'm going to do, where it's going to go, because I physically looked at it all. And if the job was 3 weeks out, the job was done 3 weeks before I got there.
All right, hey, Jeff Saufley, welcome to Tales from the Shift. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Shane. Nice to be here on your show.
Excellent. All right, electrician. First time we've had an electrician on here. In fact, we've had no blue collar people. It's hard to get blue collar folks in here. So I really want to hear your story. So why did you personally become an electrician?
Why did that's a good question. What got me in my path to being an electrician, I was working for this company, a plumbing and heating company. The plumber needed my help that day. So the plumber is like, hey, you're going to be coming with me today on a job. And I said, okay. So we were driving over in his work van to the job. And I'm like, well, so what's the job today? You know, he goes, we're going to a house and the plumbing, the main line underneath the house has been is broken. So it sounds like it's been broken for at least a few days, if not longer, maybe a week or so. So we drive up to the job, and before we left, we loaded up some bags of lime into the van, and I wasn't even thinking what's this lime for. He just put the bags of lime on there. So we get to the job. He goes, okay. He goes, you need to go underneath that house and spread the lime out so he can get underneath there because there's raw sewage underneath the house, right? So you're going to go underneath there first and put the lime down so I can go in there and do my work. I remember we were sitting in the van and I said, I ain't going underneath that house to do that. But he wasn't happy with it. Anyways, I refused to do it.
The only reason he brought you was to spread that lime under there?
Yeah, just to put the lime in there because he's the plumber. He's gonna do the repair, right?
Yeah.
So I said I refused to do it. Anyways, job got done. We went back to the office and he told the owner of the business, what happened. And I got fired. So anyways, so I was like, well, I need a job. And I lived in Pasadena at that time. I just started calling electric contractors and I went down the line, got to one guy. He goes, yeah, I could use you. I hired on with the guy. He hooked me up with his son, who was he was a master electrician. He trained me. I liked the work. It was interesting work, challenging work. And I just stayed with that company. He had 13 guys working for him. When he hired me, I was the last guy. When he retired, I was working for him. And I had my electrical contractor's license by then because I knew just doing electrical work for this company that this is something I wanted to do. It was challenging. It was fun. It made you think. You had to think. It could be physical. But overall, it wasn't very physical work to do, like I said, it was clean work to do. So I ended up, after he retired, I ended up starting my own business. And from that point on, I just built my business over the years. And in 1990 is when I started my own business.
Why don't you tell us basically, what does an electrician do?
Okay, so there's different types of electricians, right? There's industrial electricians, there's commercial and industrial electricians, there's commercial residential electricians. There's probably electricians that do all three of those. I kind of found my way as 90% of my work is residential. So I'm working in the residential application in people's homes. The whole house has lighting receptacles, switches, there's a panel in there, a main panel, right? With circuit breakers. So on a whole house install, you're starting from scratch, wiring that baby up. You're putting an electrical panel in, you're running branch circuits, which is run with wire. Usually most applications are a wire called Romex. It's a flexible cable and it has your conductors in there, and the conductors are your wires that actually get your voltage, your electricity to the loads in the house. And then you run your wire into a switch, and then off the switch you run it up to a series of lights or light or whatever. And so you just kind of, on a house, I usually engineer it myself. The architects used to like engineer the lighting and the circuits, but now they kind of rely on the electrician to understand how many lights you're going to put on a circuit, right? So I can design those, and I know how many lights can be on a circuit. And then nowadays everything's LEDs, but a lot of my work is actually going to somebody's house and like I got a job lined up for next week, and it's a customer I've done work for in the past, and he needs in his garage, he wants to put some more lights in his garage, and he doesn't have enough light in there. So we'll run what we call conduit, and it's a steel tube that we've surface mounted, and we run it to the light fixtures. So I do stuff like that. I do troubleshooting, where I get calls from a customer, my circuit breaker's tripping in my panel. I'll talk to the customer on the phone, and I'll say, "Did you check the circuit breaker? Did you flip it on, flip it off?" I'm trying to save them a service call to go out. If I can help them fix the problem on the phone, it saves them money, and then I'm good with that. That's residential work. I change out panels. I do landscape lighting, add-ons. The customer wants to add on a bathroom and a bedroom, to the house, and so I'll go over there and wire up the necessary plugs and lights and switches that are going to be required. Typically, stuff like that requires a permit. That's another thing that entails in our work, is going to the city or the county and actually going up to the permit desk and applying for a permit to do the work, and follow through and make sure that the work meets all the electrical standards that are required.
So let's say someone's watching this and I don't know what age they are. Let's say they're a teenager, who knows? And they're thinking, I want to be an electrician. I want to get involved in this. What would you say, in your opinion, what would be how should they start out? What would be the best path to take just to get going in this field, do you think?
I'd say if you're interested in doing electrical work, go to a trade school. Because what the trade school for me did is it gave me the knowledge I needed to know how electricity works and why it works, and how you're supposed to install wire and conduit and boxes, and how you're supposed to wire up a fixture, because you actually had hands-on training, but you had book training for the math part of electricity. So I would highly recommend, if that's the direction you want to go in, to get into a trade school. Go through the classes.
So let's say you're doing that, or you finished it. How would you know who to work for? I guess is how I would ask this question. Like what kind of contractor or company? What's something good? What's something bad? Like that you would use to make that determination?
Well, I mean, you can break it down. Do you want to be a residential electrician? Do you want to be an industrial electrician? I mean, the trade school is going to teach you, it's going to get you started on the basics, but then you can venture into like the industrial side of it, which is heavy control work in factories, right? You got machinery inside there, and that machinery is operated by contactors and relays, and it's operated at higher voltages than residential electricians. So that you could go into that direction, which probably includes commercial work too. I would think commercial and industrial electricians it's an easier kind of work, because it's mostly been in conduit, running wire and stuff. And residential work, you're crawling around an attic, it's 110 degrees outside. You got to go underneath the house. It could be a little more physical, but maybe not necessarily. Just go through the classes, and I think taking the classes themselves would give you an idea which direction you want to go, right? I decided to stay in the residential area. Like, what I liked about the residential part of it was my interactions with the customer. In a commercial or industrial job, it's not a homeowner you're interacting with. So I kind of like that that part of it was interacting with the customer. Like I got customers that are friends with me now over all these years, and I've got customers that have been calling me back for ever since I've been an electrician.
Do you think that, so you started a company pretty quick. Do you think that it's easier to start a company if you go the residential route as opposed to commercial?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. If you go the residential route, I think it's definitely easier to get into the residential. Because a commercial job, or industrial contractor, you got to put your time in first, right? You're not going to start a company. I mean, I spent 8 years, working for a guy before I started my own business. And typically, industrial, commercial electrical companies are large. They need a lot of equipment. They need a storage yard. Whereas residential, I never had a storage yard. My van was my storage yard, my work van. Or if I needed materials, the wholesale house was there. I would go purchase the materials I needed for that particular job. I kept my van stocked with what things I would need. But certainly, I think a residential, that's if you wanted to have your own business as an electrician, residential would be the easier route. At least for me, it was.
For the commercial side, are there any big like unions someone might be in, or
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
what about pensions? Any type of pensions, maybe if you go that route?
Yeah. I think that's the advantage to the commercial industrial side is most of those companies are going to be unionized, right? Whereas residential, some of them are, but they're not unionized. So yeah, or even working for a city or an entity, right? For LA City, they have electricians, right? So those would be union, and then you're getting a salary plus a pension and health benefits and paid vacation as an employee, right? Yeah, with residential, I just put in my own savings aside, right, and create my own savings and investments as a residential contractor.
Is there anything about electrical work that might make someone quit on day one?
Maybe if they got zapped on day one,
probably
that might make them quit. Like, I'm done. It's a challenging trade. You got to be able to think and plan, and you need to be physical too.
So you said get zapped on day one. Have you been zapped?
I've been zapped a few times. One of the worst was when I was working for this contractor, the one I eventually ended up with, and spent the 8 years with him. And he had me in a job. It was a house that they were gonna do a lot of work in, and the homeowners had moved out of the house, and he took me to the job. He says, "What I want you to do is I want you to tear out all the wiring." It was old wiring in the house, because we were going to rewire it. So tear out all the wiring in the house, and get it ready for a rewire. Before you start cutting wires in an attic or anywhere, you want to make sure the power's off to those wires, right? So he left me on the job, and I got started. And the first thing I did is I went and found the main panel, right? And I turned off all the circuit breakers, made sure they were all off. And then you can have a sub panel in the house because the main panel doesn't have enough room for all these other circuits. So you put a sub panel in, and there you can put more circuits. So I found the sub panel. I turned all those off. There was nobody else on the job. There was nobody living in the house. It was just me on the job by myself. And so, okay, cool. I looked around, made sure there was no other sub panels anywhere. Just, I thought I did a thorough, investigation of any panels that might be in the around the house there. Anyways, I got up in the attic. I remember it was a hot day. I'm sitting down in the attic and I'm cutting wires, throwing them out, down out of the attic so I can pick them up later and toss them in the trash. And I don't know how long I was up there, but I know I was sweating pretty good. It was summertime, and we have these things called there's lineman pliers, and then there's strippers, wire strippers. You can cut wire with it, you can strip wire with it. And I cut into a piece of Romex is what it was up there, the cable, and it was hot, and it got a hold of me. I just happened to be I'd had me sitting on it was a cold water line or a hot water line. I don't know which one it was, but it was galvanized metal. And I was sitting on that. And so metal's a pretty good conductor, right? So that thing got a hold of me here, and it just, fortunately it wasn't in my left hand. It was in my right hand because I'm right-handed. And it went through my arm, and then I was sitting on the pipe, and it went right through my leg into the pipe. So it had this pathway, the electricity going through my arm and then out behind my butt right there. And it just got a hold of me. I just remember, like, Jesus, you this is not good. Somehow I managed to open my hand up, and I broke the contact with the metal strippers, and then I was good then. But it took a lot out of me. I just remember I was kind of done, and I just.
So your muscles, they contract, right?
They contract. Yeah, they did that. They just froze up because I had these strippers in my hand. And they just froze up like this, It's like, but I managed to open my hand somehow and release it. And then,
and if if you hadn't,
well, I mean, if I hadn't, I might not be here right now. I might not be here right now. I mean, it could have done me in, but fortunately, it didn't. Don't know why.
Was there injuries? Did you have like any burns?
No, I don't. It just hurt. I just threw my tools out of that. I called my boss and said, I'm leaving the job. I just got shocked. I don't feel like working anymore. He said, okay. So that was.
Why did it turn out it was hot? Where did it come from?
Yeah. Okay. So I got out of the attic, and I was like, damn it. I said, what the hell? I turned off all the breakers everywhere. I went back and checked the sub panels, the main panel. Everything was off. I put my meter on. They're dead. And I split that, So I went down to the basement of the house, and I had been in there once before already, and I'm looking around in there, and I saw this old mattress, it was leaning against a wall. And I said, I never looked behind that sucker. And I pulled that old mattress away, and sure enough, there was a little sub panel there with one circuit breaker in it. A little small panel, about this big. I said,
how did electricity get to that? Where did it come from?
It was coming off the main.
I thought you shut the main off.
Yeah, I didn't turn off the main. I probably should have turned it. But that was my inexperience. I was new in the business, right? I probably should have turned off the main altogether. This is what I should have done. Then I would have been sure that nothing was on. But, I had to learn the hard way, I guess. But that was after that, I had little nips and stuff occasionally, but nothing major, So I'm here living proof,
Okay. Is there anything you had to give up to succeed in this field?
No. One of the things I decided out when I started my own business was I want to earn a living, but I wouldn't let that chasing that dollar interfere with other aspects of my life. I just wasn't going to let it do that. I turned off my phone at a certain time in the evening. I got home from work. I'd kept it on for a certain amount of time, and I shut it off because I didn't want it. I wanted to pursue other things. I was into my training. I liked training. I liked running, cycling. So
and now painting.
Yeah.
Is that your painting in the back there? To your right?
That's one of them. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can see. There's two of them. Those are just some abstracts.
Those are yours. Oh,
yeah, those two.
You did abstract too? Okay, because I see the landscape one over there. Looks like
that one right there. See it back there?
Yeah.
I got them all over the house, but I don't want to drag my laptop over it.
It reminds me of like Lake Havasu or something there on that one.
Oh, the one over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually it's a painting I did. I keep that painting because it's one of the very first paintings I ever did. I mean, I've been doing it for a while, Yeah.
It's good to have some. No, I think it's important to have like a creative outlet for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it is. Yeah.
If you were to close your eyes and picture a veteran electrician, what do you see? What does that person look like?
Well, I mean, probably like me, I guess. I mean, like I said, electricians, our work is not that physical, It can be, you might be lifting some heavy things, but you're not beating yourself up as an electrician. You're like, I might neighbor, he was a masonry contractor. I mean, guy was on his knees. You're putting a footing in, or you're the slab for a house. You're on your knees. He killed himself physically. He's just beat up. We're normally not in high. We get up on ladders, but we're normally not up too high. So veteran electrician. I mean, the ones I know, they're all walking around. They look okay.
Hey, quick time out from the video. I just want to say that we're always looking for people to be on the show. So I don't care if you work at McDonald's. Email me at talesfromtheshiftpodcast@gmail.com and I'll get you on here. I know it's cliche, but if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm so other people can find this. Now back to the show. So is there a person you would say this job is maybe definitely for or definitely not for?
Well, I think you need to be prepared for some physical work. You need to be prepared to go up on ladders, to drill holes in 2x4s in a house for hours on end and pull wire. It's physical. You need to be prepared to work in not necessarily rain, but in cold weather. I mean, a lot of our work is outside or hot. I mean, if it's 110 degrees out, you need to be prepared. The job's not going to shut down for the day if it's 110 degrees out. And you're putting an electrical panel in on a side of a house where the sun's blazing down. Some hazardous conditions too. Electricity itself is hazardous. That thing in the attic, I'm lucky I broke contact with those pliers. So you can be hazardous. I mean, there are electricians that are not alive now because they did something wrong. They didn't do the necessary things to make sure that they were safe.
Is there any way that this job or career has made you a more cynical person or the opposite, a more hopeful person?
I would think more hopeful than cynical. Yeah. I think because of my interactions with lots of people over, 30 plus years of going into people's homes, so I think more hopeful. You mean, you don't know people until you're in their home and you get to know them. And like I said, I have customers that I'm friends with them now,
Yeah.
So definitely more hopeful.
Okay. What would you say the worst day is you've ever had in the job? Was it the one where you got the electrical issue?
That was the worst day.
What about the best day?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of best days. Stepping back from your work and looking at it and saying, I did a good job. I treated the customer right. The customer likes my work. I had a lot, way more days like that. I liked my job. I liked what I did, and I still do it. But I liked it. I never went out. I don't think there was ever a day where I just didn't like what I was doing. Some jobs went a little too long. I mean, I don't like to be in one job in one place too long. I want to get into it because every job's different. You're physically in a different place, different people, different circumstances. So that was very appealing, So if I'm on a job for the same job for 2 weeks, get me out of here.
Right. Right. Is there anything cool or enjoyable about the job that you're surprised to find out about after you got involved with, like you call it bennies,
Yes. I think the coolest thing for me about being an electrician is just, I like bending conduit. I liked it from the get-go. I liked making sure that conduit was pretty when I put it up on a wall, and it functioned properly.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the coolest part about being an electrician for me, was bending conduit. And then, I mean, I got to the point, I shouldn't be saying this, but I could bend conduit without measuring sometimes. I just could look at the angles. I needed to just bend it up. I just had that knack.
Would you say that kind of connects you, maybe since you're an artistic person?
Yeah, I got on with a commercial contractor briefly. We were doing a hospital, and there was a master electrician on the job. And that guy, he put the most beautiful conduit down. I mean, his offsets. An offset is when you bend a pipe and it does this like this thing like that. That's an offset, And he did the prettiest the prettiest offsets. They were all perfect. And I just remember looking at those things and, thinking how nice that looked, So, yeah.
Cool. Have you ever built a computer?
No. Built a computer?
Yeah.
No.
But it just seems like it would be up your alley because there's a lot of wiring to it. And a lot of people pride themselves on how they manage that wiring to make it appear.
Wire management. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another aspect of, like wire management in the main panel where all your circuit breakers are. You're bringing all those wires in, right? There's a lot of wires coming into an electrical panel on a typical residence. And so, bringing those wires in from the top or the bottom, it's called wire management, and it's like, you want those wires to come in and be straight and tucked away and nice and neat. And then when each one comes down to the circuit breaker, they all, they got a nice 90-degree bend on them. Yeah. It's called wire management. I had one in particular. The inspector came over, and the first thing he looked at was the electrical panel. And I was standing there with a homeowner, and they want to look at the wiring in there. They want to look at the size of the wire in there, size of the circuit breaker, look at the grounding, make sure it's all proper. Open it up and make sure it's labeled properly. And I opened it up and he looked in there. And he's like, "Well, that looks really nice," And then the homeowner says to him, "Well, do you want to see the work inside too?" And he did. And he goes, "No, I don't need to look at it. I saw this already. I know this guy does good work." So he should have looked at the work. I mean, as an inspector, in my opinion, but he said, "I don't need to look at it. I see his stuff right here. I don't need to look at it." Yeah. So wire management is cool too.
Okay. All right, let's talk about pay. Putting aside what you made when you first started, if you could think about what someone might make now, getting started out when they first start, kind of middle career, towards the higher portions of their career, what you think that someone might generally make.
You're going to start out working for somebody, and you got to put your time in. Electricians do get paid pretty good wage wise. I think the average pay, if you've got 5 or 6 years underneath you, you're making $65 an hour, $55 an hour. There's that part where you're working for somebody making pretty decent money. You could keep doing that the rest of your career. You could work for an electrical contractor. If you get on as a union for the city or for a big company, you're gonna retire there, right? You're gonna keep earning more money every year. You're probably gonna be making $75 an hour, but maybe even more. I started out making that wage working for a contractor. Got on my own. I was working by myself initially, so everything I earned was for me. I still was licensed and bonded, insured. I had to pay that, but my wages were mine. And when you're first starting out, you're charging $75 an hour back in those days. Now you're charging, for me, a service call just to go to somebody's house, just to drive there for that first hour. I'm charging $150 just to show up for that first hour. You can make pretty decent money. You can be making into the six figures easily. I did. You could be making $400,000 a year, just depending on how much you wanted to work. It's a good trade. Plumbers are going to kill me, but it's one of the best trades out there. It's a very clean trade.
So you say pay wise, you think plumbers and electricians are?
That's interesting. They're about even. Yeah, plumbers, I think, actually make a little more money than we do. From what I've seen historically, they charge a little bit more money than we do. No why, but they do.
But you're not dealing with shit.
Yeah. People need their toilets, I guess. You can go without electricity for a while, but need that bathroom, man.
All right. Well, what about work-life balance? What kind of shifts does an average electrician work?
Well, for me, I told you what mine was. I was a 9-to-5 electrician. And I knew that instinctively with residential, people do not want you in their homes at 7 o'clock in the morning. they don't. I wouldn't want somebody in my house. I'm having my coffee, man. So I was a 9 to 5 electrician. I'd like, is 9 o'clock okay? That's they're like perfect. And you do your 8 hours if it's an 8-hour day. And then Saturdays were the days I did my estimates because people had their weekends off usually, and then Sundays were off. So that was my schedule. I know that like commercial work and industrial work, they have an earlier start time normally, 7 o'clock usually, or 8 o'clock probably the latest, for their hours. And they're probably 5 days a week too. I don't think there's a lot of weekend stuff.
And then what about after work? Do you have any? You ever needed any type of transition to get from I'm electrical Jeff to being I'm home Jeff? Anything like that? Any effects on your relationships at all?
No. I mean, I think the most stressful part for me about being an electrician in the Los Angeles area was the drive to the job, the traffic. That was just a stressful getting to the job and getting home in the traffic.
I would imagine the traffic was longer sometimes than the actual job.
Oh yeah. I mean, believe me, I've plenty of times, go 20, 30 miles in 2 hours to get there,
Jesus. It's rough.
Yeah, it's like those. I think those were the days, and they're like, "Why am I doing this?"
You charge a premium for the 405's backed up. This is going to be extra for $75. Yeah. All right. What about fellow electricians? What's it like interacting with them? Fun?
Yeah.
Competitive?
Oh, you mean? Yeah, fun. I mean, you go. The only time you're really seeing them is at the wholesale house. You see those familiar guys coming in there all the time, right? But there was never any animosity. Everybody was friendly. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
So when you're doing a job, if it's not a huge commercial building, you might be, odds are you're the only person there anyway. Is that right?
The only electrician on the job? Yeah,
electrician wise, yeah.
There's going to be other trades there, But I mean.
What about the relationships with them? You're working on a house, and
you try to get along. There's been times where there's been some people that were difficult, maybe some other trades that, but you just all try to get along.
Yeah. Which trade has the biggest hassles?
Oh, hassles. Well,
you don't have to answer the question you want to.
Yeah. Plumbers probably more than anything because they always wanted to get in there first, and we wanted to get stuff done. And they're like, we got to do our stuff first. Like, okay, do your stuff. Yeah, we'll wait.
All right, man. Call us the Shift Dictionary. Can you teach us 3 slang terms or phrases that an electrician might say to another electrician?
Well, we gotta fish that wire, So fishing wires, you have it's called a fish tape, and it's meant for pulling wire and conduit, right? So you run your conduit, whether it's a flexible conduit, or now sometimes it's plastic, or metal. 30 feet down the hall, there's a junction box, and you need to get the wire from there to this other junction box 30 feet away. So it's called a fish tape, and it's called fishing or pulling wire. So you run a fish tape with some metal or plastic lead through the conduit, and you tie your wires on one side, and then you pull it through. Electricians are usually known as sparkies, right? It's kind of the sparkies are here. So, sparkies are here. A gopher, you know what a gopher is?
It's like someone who's low level that you have them run everywhere.
Yeah, go for it. Go get it. You're the gopher on the job because you're just starting out. Yeah. It's kind of the first thing I can think of.
I was a gopher on a house construction when I was a teenager.
Yeah, gopher, yeah.
All right. So let's suppose you could go back to your first day as an electrician and speak to yourself, other than saying, don't cut that one cord. What other advice might you give yourself?
Just do a good job, man. For me, I've always been very methodical in my thinking. I would go and do an estimate for a customer or contractor. We got a bathroom, we got a bedroom, and this is what we need to do. Lights, plugs, we need a heater in there. We need a sub panel. And so here's how I would do my jobs. And I'm sure a lot of electricians or tradesmen are like this. The job's on my mind, right? This job's coming up. And I've already been on the job site. I know what materials I need. I know where everything needs to go. And that job is already done in my head before I get there. It's done. I already have it planned out in what I'm going to do, where it's going to go, because I physically looked at it all. It's done. It's pretty much 100% done in my head before I even get there. So I get there on the job. I know exactly what the first thing I'm going to do on the job. And that's the way I train my guys. And by the way, my guys that I would hire, I got them from LA Trade Tech because, they went through the schooling. They knew they got good grades. They went through the 2-year program, meant that they were dedicated to being an electrician. So that's how I train my guys. Just don't show up in the job. Think about this job before you get there. And I didn't want myself going to the job and sitting there like, how am I going to do this job? That's wasted time. It's just wasted time. So that job was done in my head before I even got in the job. It was done. If the job was 3 weeks out, the job was done 3 weeks before I got there.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that answer a lot. What's something that you learned on the job that really wasn't in any of your training?
How to communicate with people. First of all, how to listen. You need to listen first. Listen what the customer wants, and then knowing how to communicate. So you want to be thorough in telling them what you're going to do, how long it's going to take. You're going to give them an estimate for the work, but you just want them to feel secure in hiring you. And so people skills. I mean, it's important to be, because you have to sell yourself, right? You're selling yourself. So you need to be confident in your people skills, your communication skills, just being able to look somebody straight in the eye and talk to them one-on-one and just be normal. Just try to be yourself. Because why do you want to be another person? You are who you are.
Yeah, the selling yourself has come up many times now on this show with other jobs, and I think I almost wish it was maybe a course you could take in college or something, because it seems like it applies to so many times as to how to present yourself, how to engage with people, how to get along with people. But you just got to learn on the job, I guess, for that.
Example, I was contacted by a potential customer. So I said, okay, what day are you available? I made the appointment. And when I got there, I'm a stickler. I tell somebody I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to get there 9:30 or quarter till 10 or 10:30. I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. And because people are impressed by that, and if you're going to be late, you call. Because there's nothing worse than not telling somebody you're not going to be, not even telling me. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard from customers that I've gone to, like, oh, I had this other electrician. He said he's going to be here. He's been telling me he's going to be here for weeks, and he doesn't show up. Didn't call me, and like, I show up and I'm there on time. I told him I was going to be there at 10 o'clock. I got there at 10 o'clock. They opened the door up, and they're shocked almost that you're there at 10 o'clock.
Sounds like the bar is kind of low.
Oh, yeah. This one job was pretty funny. I showed up, the guy opens the door, and I was right on time, like I always am. He's like, he goes, gosh, I can't believe you're here on time. You're here at the time you said you're. He goes, you wouldn't believe the last guy that came here was late. He didn't call me. Hours went by, and the doorbell rang. I opened the door. It was this supposedly electrician, and he had a beer in his hand. This is what the customer told me. I'm like, I couldn't believe that. I said, this is not an electrician, dude. He was not an electrician. Yeah, that's a bad sign right there.
I think it's a good way to run a business, especially if it's your own personal business.
Right. It's your business. So you want to succeed. There's things you got to do to be successful. Right.
Right.
Just
And now
is.
people can go on the Google reviews or whatever and go, one
I
star,
know.
this guy was an hour late, didn't say anything to me. But for you, they're going to go, this guy's here exactly when he said he was supposed to. It's amazing.
Yeah. For me, it was, I knew that how was I going to grow this business? And it's referrals, right? So you get in there, you're on time with the estimate, you're on time getting it done, you give them a fair price, you treat them properly, or you get the job done in a timely manner, you're pretty much assured that you're going to get a referral from that customer.
Yeah.
So go into the business with that type of attitude. Like, how am I going to grow this business? It's like those things right there. That's how you're going to grow it.
Nice. All right. Well, let's say you want to move on to other jobs besides opening up your own business, and besides residential and commercial. What other kind of jobs might an electrician background lead to?
Okay. Well, one of them, probably the most common one, is transitioning when you're done with your career as an electrician is an inspector for a city or for an entity, right? You were an electrician for 30 years. You're a prime candidate to be an inspector. Of course, you need your certifications to be an inspector. There's things you need to get certified for, but it's a good lead in. Believe me, I've met plenty of inspectors on the jobs that were like, yeah, I was an electrician. I was an electrician for 30 years, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And I'm doing this now. That's probably the main thing that I can think of as a lead in. You can get into a bigger company and just be a foreman, just point fingers. That's a good way to go. As you did your time as an electrician, and now you're just running the whole project now as the electrical part of it.
Put yourself back 15 years ago, maybe. If you had won the lottery, do you think you would quit, or would you keep doing it maybe on the side? Filthy rich.
Filthy rich, yeah. Well, I don't know. I really liked what I did. I liked the thinking of it. I liked the methodical part of it. For me, still to this very day, I like the accolades I get from doing a really good job. People like saying, that's nice work. It's nice work, and it functions. It's hard to give that up. The accolades people give you, the feedback that they give you. I don't know. How would I do if I did win millions of dollars and I wouldn't get those accolades anymore? So I think I would miss that. But you could move on to do something else, do something charitable, I guess, with it.
All right, Jeff. Final question. What's a secret about being an electrician that most people don't know?
I don't know if this is right, but I would just say the secret is about being an electrician is to just enjoy doing it. It's a great trade. For me, I think it's the best trade of all of them. And I would say just enjoy it because it can be enjoyable. Interacting with my customers is one of the better parts about being an electrician, is going to that customer's house and presenting yourself to them, making them comfortable with you, getting that job done in a timely manner and making them happy. And that's a pretty enjoyable return emotionally, but then you got the financial return of it too. So if you can enjoy that part of it, the interacting with a customer or the contractor that you're going to work for, like for me, getting along with that contractor and forming a friendship with them, that's an enjoyable thing. It can be it enhances you as a person.
Yes.
And then there's the financial part of it, which is not a bad thing. So I would think to try to enjoy all those aspects of being, at least for me as an electrician, why I'd done it for so long. I would have been out of here a long time ago if I didn't enjoy what I was doing.
Yeah. All right, Jeff Saufley, my brother-in-law, I really appreciate you being here. It's been excellent.
All right. Thank you so much. Good talking to you.